Have you ever wondered how to calculate just how much food it takes a day for you to survive?
I mean, staying alive sounds like a pretty good thing. So it'd be kind of nice to know, right?
As nice as that might be, there's just no set formula for you to follow that's going to keep you fueled for everything life throws your way.
However, if you want some information on why such a formula doesn't exist,
then this edition of the First In Q+A with J&A is for you. My name is Jonathan Montgomery.
and I'm Ann Montgomery.
And we're the co-founders of First In Nutrition.
If you want to learn more about what coaching and community can do for you, head on over to firstinnutrition.com.
And if you're ready to find out more about why a one-size-fits-all plan rarely fits anyone at all, you're in the right place. Let's get to it. This is an interesting question. Scott asks, is there a definitive way to calculate how many calories exactly you need to eat a day to maintain living? And the answer is going to be kind of nebulous. And it's not even an it depends. It's that the goalpost is always going to move. In life, biology, if you will.
Yes, science!
You are either getting better or you're dying. There's no stasis. There really is no staying the same. It's not that homeostasis is a farce. It's that it is a constant effort to find balance to maintain. And when a little bit tweaks here, a little bit adjusts there. And when a little bit falls apart here, a little bit comes up over there. And it is a constant balancing act. There is no definitive way to determine how many calories exactly you need to maintain living, because living itself is going to require a different amount of calories every single moment of your life, depending on what you're doing, when you're doing it, where you're doing it, how you're doing, and who you are when you do it. So as cool as that would be to run ourselves as efficiently as you do some of the machines in your shop,
I am a machine.
we are not machines. So what I can tell you is, using lagging indicators, every day you wake up, you know the day before you ate enough to maintain living. So that's good. Outside of that, we're going to have to figure out different ways we want to measure this criteria.
There is a scenario in where there is a yes to this answer, but it is theory, not reality. If you were to be placed in a lab, in a vacuum, and hooked up to machines and wires, and they were measuring exactly how many calories you were using every second of every day, and you spent your entire life in there, they could tell you from day to day exactly how many calories you are using living. But it still would change from day to day. You're still changing as a person. Your cells are dying and duplicating, and your muscle mass is changing up or down depending on what you're doing, and you're eating or you're not eating. So yes, in theory, you could find out an exact calculation. Is that life for any of us? No, we're not lab rats. That's not going to happen. So there's really no way to tell. And Jonathan hit this really well. You're changing all the time, every minute of every day, and your body is really good at adjusting for things. So you eat a little less, you move a little less. Your body adjusts for that. Doesn't mean that you are aware of this. It means that, hey, your body goes, hey, I got a little less fuel today. I'm going to downregulate some things, so I'm going to slow down my cognitive function. Maybe your thinking's a little off. Maybe you're not tapping your fingers or your toes like you used to. Maybe you don't want to get up and go change the laundry because you're just tired. It slows things down in response to that. And the opposite is true. You add a little more fuel and your body feels good. It will move more. You'll fidget more, shift more, get up and dance every now and then. Whatever it is you feel good doing. So yes, in theory you could. In reality, no, it's all based on those lagging indicators that Jonathan talked about.
Yeah, I will say, again, I'm going to reiterate, there is a definitive way to ensure you're consuming enough calories to live, and that's live, right? Until disease gets you, or a bus hits you, or your ticket gets punched, right? However, living, surviving should not be the goal for any of us. Thriving and continued improvement should be the goal. And when that is the goal, whatever carries you in that direction, as that direction change, as you enter different seasons of your life, different phases of your progress, different goals that require different fueling, that's always going to change. And there is not a definitive formula yet that has been mapped out for anyone, not even the average person, that's going to be able to encompass that with any degree of certainty outside of test, retest, adapt, and see how it goes. And that's why we are constantly in this relationship of coaching, making the smallest adjustments we can to see how your body responds and to see if we're continually moving in the direction you want to trend and you want to head, which again, hopefully is thriving and not just surviving. So definitive way to calculate, no. Ensuring you're living, yes. Ensuring you're continuing to thrive and not just survive, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here to look at. And that requires collecting information over time, seeing how you actually respond, and making an informed decision to figure out the next right step.
This question kind of leads into a little side note, because what this reminds me of is there are a lot of formulas out there where you can type in the Google, how many calories do I need every day? And you put in all your information and it spits out this number and it says you need this many calories based on your height and your weight and your activity. That is very subjective, right? So it spits out this number and you go, okay, this is my maintenance. But maybe you start eating that and you don't feel very good. Maybe you're tired. Maybe your workouts suck. Maybe you start eating that and you're overly full and you start to gain weight and you go, but the thing told me that this is how much I should be eating. The problem is any formula that's been brought up so far, the calculators, the algorithms, they're based on general population and an average. And not one of us on the planet is the exact match to that average, because it's an accumulation of everybody. It takes the average standard across the board. Could it get you close? Maybe. But there are so many factors in your life versus my life versus Jonathan or Albert's or Eric's or Sephra's that are completely different, that it just doesn't take into account. So this is why we use trending over time. This is why we watch what your actual feedback does and looks like, because theory does not tend to match up with reality as exactly as we want it to.
Another good thing about that is if we took the average height, let's say for instance, I'm 6 foot, and let's say for instance, Anne's 5 foot.
We fixed that.
The average height between us is 5.5 feet, 5'6". That doesn't really help either of us, right? That doesn't really help us go to the tailor and get pants. But that's how an average works. Now, when we generate these average formulas, we're collecting tens of thousands, hundreds, millions of data points.
$1 million.
To come up with the average. But it's still just an average. And it's still just an average based on all of the 5'8" 3/4" people on the planet that you are trying to fit that average in. And it might be pretty good. But you know what all those formulas require? They require a human to input data into them. So maybe you're like me and you're 5'11" on a good day when you haven't done squats. But you don't want anybody on the interweb to know that. So you type in 6 foot, right? And maybe when it asks your body weight, you're feeling a little bit, embarrassed a little bit. And instead of saying it's X, you just say it's X minus 7 because maybe you had clothes on or you had a big meal or whatever it is. And you start fudging a little bit. But the part where everybody likes to just sing those praises a little bit that really skews these numbers off is when it comes to inputting their activity level. The biggest modifier that changes those things is when it asks you how active you are. And you start reading those little multiplier check boxes and you go, well, you know what, man? I do walk the dog every day to the mailbox and back. So I'm active every day. 7 days a week I'm active. Well, how strenuous is it? Oh, you know what, man? Some days I really get after it. I do at least a 3 to 5 minute stretching session, and I might do some hardcore conditioning, as many rounds as possible, as 2 minutes and 45 seconds will let me get in before I whatever, and so on and so on. And we adjust this to where now we have literally entered into the equation that we are Michael Phelps getting ready for the final gold medal run. And the equation has us logging 8 hours of activity a day. And we look at that number and we're very happy that we could eat 4,700 calories a day. And we wonder why we're not making progress. So the biggest problem with trying to find one of these averages is controlling the human component. and the error that has to run those numbers, and then that has to objectively watch and trend and give those numbers enough time to actually take action to determine whether or not they were wildly off or not. And that's why the process we use does not rely on charts, figures, rolling chicken bones, reading smoke signals. It relies on collecting information and responding to it, utilizing lagging indicators. And that's what allows us to make sure, again, that we're moving more towards thriving and not just surviving.
Clearly, that's an extreme example. Maybe you don't push the envelope that much on your activity level, but it's really easy to overestimate. Hey, I went to the gym 4 times this week and I crushed it, so I'm super active, and they're hard sessions. Okay, maybe, but the amount of calories that are actually spent lifting weights or training, unless you are some sort of Olympic athlete, is actually almost negligible. Could you get a few more? Yeah, but we're not ultra marathon running. We're not hiking 7 peaks in 7 weeks. We're not doing anything that strenuous. So to be honest, we lift, we run, we ruck, we do jujitsu, we do some AMRAPs and EMOMs with running, and our activity level is still pretty light.
On the relative scale, yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest with you guys.
So that's a tricky one, and it's really hard to determine your activity level like that, and that's why we don't rely on it, because it's just not a good factor to use when you calculate your food needs.
Yeah, it's a whole lot better and more effective and more productive to respond to what actually occurred and what actually changes your body made in response to a specific goal than try to assume and guesstimate and hope you guessed right, because most of us tend to want to overestimate because we like to eat food.
More food.
And more food is not necessarily a bad thing.
I feel you.
So yeah, a little bit of a twist in there, a little bit of a let's take it depends to a further degree, but hopefully that shed at least some light on this subject. Let us know if it doesn't, and we'll dive back in. If you stuck around this far, thanks for hanging out with us. If you like what you heard or think someone else might dig it, go ahead and like, subscribe, and share, or whatever the cool kids say.
If you want to learn more about First In or hear more from our family, you can find us on the socials at First In Nutrition.
And if you're looking for actionable ways to put yourself first, head over to fieldnotes.firstinnutrition.com to join the Field Notes faction for weekly tools and tactics to keep yourself on the path to progress. Because the people that depend on you the most
Deserve you at your best.